Welcome back. An ecosystem seminar is currently taking place in the Omaheke region, urgently addressing the challenges presented by climate change, particularly the recurring droughts that affect local farming communities. Stakeholders such as farmers, environmental experts and policymakers have come together to discuss strategies for adaptation and resilience. The effects of climate change on water availability and agricultural productivity are critical, as many families depend on livestock and subsistence farming, for their livelihoods. This event aims to encourage collaboration amongst stakeholders to develop actionable solutions that can mitigate the impact of climate change on agriculture in this vulnerable region. We are joined online now by NBC reporter Ngarije Kavari, who is based in the Omaheke region and has insight into the seminar. Good evening, Kavari. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Daily Roundup.
Yeah, good evening to everyone out there also.
Can you describe how climate change has specifically affected farming practices within the Omaheke region?
Yeah, thank you once again. Climate change has affected farmers and farming communities or the residents of the Omaheke region in different ways, and most importantly is the issue of drought. And with the recurrent drought, the region went through for the past 4 to 5 years. One will not shy away to state that livelihoods of most residents is at stake, as the regional governor have alluded to even during his State of the Region address on the issue of malnutrition, amongst others. So with this climate change, drought is within the region, and communities in the Omaheke region, most of them are relying heavily on the agricultural sector. And with this recurrent drought, there are no crops that have been produced. That one can say some might receive some surplus from others. And even livestock market have been severely affected. And this is one of the things also that have been discussed through the 2-day seminar that have been touching on the ecosystem and adaptation in the region. So with this, farmers and communities are finding it very difficult. And with the livestock in the region, as we know, the region have been categorized as a cattle country in Namibia or in some part of the country. So farmers are finding it very difficult, but through the seminar, discussions have been underway, touching on issues that maybe will assist farmers when it comes to drought-resistant crop production, drought-resistant livestock, or where one will also question, especially on the aspect of the livestock, where farmers have been even asking that if we have to adapt to new mechanism of keeping drought-resistant animals, that will take you to livestock like the Afrikaner breed, the Guni breed, the Sanga breed, amongst others that are more resistant to drought. But farmers are questioning, where are we going to get that breed that can be taken through the drought system, or that can sustain us during this climate change? So the question will also go back to them to say, you might sell what you have now so that you can sustain yourself, or find ways on how you can sustain yourself with this climate change. But the market at the current state where we are now for livestock is one of the things that is also discouraging farmers not to sell their livestock, because livestock prices are very, very low, and that is because of the condition of the livestock. So farmers are very affected by the climate change in the Omaheke region, as most of them are relying heavily on livestock, as I have alluded to earlier there.
Kavari also talked to me about some of the practices that the farmers need to adapt to now in response to this changing climate conditions.
Yeah, that's what I have said, that there are a lot of ways that have been also discussed through the seminar, that if they can find ways like restoration of land, because as we know, soil erosion and all that can happen through the drought time, and also reforestation, trying to replant trees where they have cut trees, so that they can find ways on how to mitigate this. And also issues like mixed farming have been also discussed, so that they can diversify their farming techniques, moving away from only keeping livestock, so that they can venture into poultry project, piggery, amongst others, so that they can find a more reasonable and sustainable way of making a living during this climate change or the drought that have been taking center stage during their lifetime for now.
What resources or support is now pivotal at this time for the farmers in the Omaheke region?
Resources could have been funds if we could have been availed, and one maybe will look at NGOs that deal with a disaster, that deal with human impact, that deal with livestock-related projects. Maybe that will come into effect, but through government, as we know, only livestock subsidies that have been coming forth so far in the region. I think something that have been also taken into most rural part of the country, where whenever one sells his livestock, and then he can get a subsidy. When one can move his livestock from one area to another area where he is grazing, and then that lease agreement, government can also assist halfway. But for that aspect of moving animal from one area to another area because of grazing, I think it's very, very minimal in the region, because the whole region has been declared being under drought. So moving livestock from one area to another area is something that has been also not that forthcoming, comparing to livestock subsidy and fodder subsidy and all that. But the other thing also during this time is the issue of underground water. Underground water have been also something that have been thorn in the flesh amongst many farming communities because of this poor rainfall. And government is trying its level best to drill boreholes. Earlier, that was 2 or 3 months back, we had an interview with the Minister of Agriculture, Water and Land Reform, where he has mentioned that more than 14 boreholes have been drilled in the region as a way of assisting farmers during this drought period. So things are happening, but the main issue that maybe will assist farmers, if more funds can be availed, and then the resources can be found to assist farmers.
On that note, Kavari, your final remarks this evening?
I think agriculture remains one of the key area in the Omaheke region that can sustain many farming communities and residents, and also at the country at large. The country at large is also depending heavily on the agricultural sector. So if more funds can be directed towards agriculture, one will say that in one way or another we can also get rural to urban migration, because if agriculture can be more funded, many people can remain in rural areas and they can produce more. And then those that are in urban areas, they can rely from these people. But if agriculture is not supported, we will be severely affected as a country. Even the economy of the country will be affected. But with the climate change and drought and all this, it requires stakeholders to sit. It requires experts to sit and find ways on how we can mitigate the situation. So I think for now, that's what we have from the Omaheke region.
Ngarije Kavari, thank you so much for your time this evening. Thank you for joining us here on the Daily Roundup.
It was a pleasure having you also this afternoon.
When we come back, we have more conversations lined up. Stay with us here on the Daily Roundup.